Welcome to PuckHeads Insider Report. You're listening to Season 1, Episode 1. My name is Ed Combs. I got 10 years in radio broadcasting experience. I've worked in sports talk radio, classic rock, and country music. My co-host, Peter South, who is up in Windsor, Ontario, is a former general manager, head coach, and assistant coach in the IHL with the Detroit Vipers and the Flint General. He also currently works as a head scout with the Fort Wayne Komets and works with all 32 NHL teams. Hello, Peter. What's going on in the world of hockey?
Hey, Ed, how are you? There is a lot going on in hockey right now. First thing, I think that's the most important thing is we get to when the seasons are starting for the various leagues and how they're starting. First off, let's talk major junior hockey. That's part of the Canadian Hockey League up in Canada with teams in the U.S. There's 3 different leagues up there. We'll start first out east with the Quebec Major Junior League. They've already started their season, and they're based with teams in Quebec and the east coast of Canada. And what's happened there is because of the COVID exposures, they've actually had to shut down part of the league. The teams in the red zone in Quebec, so the teams out in the east coast have been playing, but the teams in Quebec have been on hold. But there's a lot of talk that they're going to resume their schedule very, very soon.
Let's step into the OHL. What does it look like they're going to do?
Well, the OHL has released a news release this past week saying they're going to start up on the 4th of February. What makes it very interesting, though, is the Ministry of Sport for Ontario has come out and said that she will not allow body checking because of the risk of COVID contact. Where that's gone is the commissioner of the OHL. He has come out and said that we're going to play that more when it comes closer to the date. He's smart enough to realize if you say no body checking at a major junior level, you're going to lose fans and butts in the seats and sponsors and everything like that.
Nobody's going to be watching.
Nobody will be watching. And it'd also be a travesty to these young men who are have been drafted and are trying to develop for their NHL teams, and also for the young men who are eligible for the next 2021 draft. So that would actually hurt their abilities to play too. The other thing that's going to be a challenge for the OHL is there's 3 teams based in the United States, 2 in Michigan and 1 in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Next up, we got the Western Hockey League, Peter. What's the word there? When is their start date?
The Western Hockey League is made an announcement. They're going to try to get going right after New Year's in early January. And again, they have the same issue that the Ontario Hockey League does with they have 5 American teams. They haven't announced it yet, but the simple solution for that would be to just have the 5 American teams play in their own division and play amongst themselves or if the borders aren't open yet.
All right, now before we get into the World Junior Tournament, I want to talk about the USHL and the teams based in Ann Arbor for the National Team Development Program, the under-18 kids, and what that's looking like.
Well, the USHL has been playing an exhibition schedule throughout the month of October, which has included a few games against the U.S. development teams. And they are scheduled to get going next weekend with their, I think it's like a 56-game schedule they're going to go with. And they're full steam ahead. Obviously, there's no border issues in that league. And they're seem to be the one league that's, like I said, going to go full steam ahead. Hopefully they don't run into any COVID issues, but we'll see how that goes over the next few weeks.
As a scout in hockey, I know you're a scout with the ECHL Fort Wayne Komets. You went back to Michigan a week or so ago. Were you looking at the USHL or the National Development Team?
Well, I also do some writing for a publication as well, which has me look at the young draft eligible players, but I also look at the overage players. And the game I saw last week was against Concordia College, and then the next night was the U18 team played Adrian College. So I'm looking at seniors in college level as well.
All right, now speaking of college, let's jump into the NCAA.
The NCAA is getting off to a slow start. The WCHA conference is the first to actually release a schedule. They've seemed to have all their ducks in a row. The Big Ten Conference, which is very interesting as far as scouting goes, because Michigan is rostering 3 players who are early ranked in the top 10 of the upcoming draft. So people are anxious to see the Big Ten schedule. That hasn't been released yet, but my source in the league says that's supposed to be coming out very, very soon. They're going to include Arizona State in the schedule like they have in the last year or two, even though Arizona State isn't part of the Big Ten yet.
And let's jump to the Canadian University Hockey and what's going on there.
Canada, as you well know, has been playing it a lot closer to the vest as far as the COVID, and the Canadian University Hockey back in the late summer announced that they are not having any sports at all until at least March 31st. So that canceled all the university hockey for this year.
So so what's going on with these kids now who have some of them who are seniors, who have no opportunity to go for either national championships or show their wares to AHL, NHL teams?
Exactly. They have nothing going on. A lot of them are still in some regions of Canada. They do get full scholarships. So I'm sure a lot of them are just figuring, you know what, graduate, take my degree and move on with life, go from there. As you're aware, a lot of the Canadian college players are a little older. A lot of them come directly from the Canadian Hockey League, who realize, they weren't drafted or anything like that. And part of the package of being in the Canadian Hockey League is you get 1 year of university hockey or university schooling per year you spent in junior hockey. So if you played 4 years in major junior, you get 4 years paid of college. So a lot of them are looking at it, might as well get their degree and, putting their dream of playing pro hockey on the shelf.
So one thing, maybe, because I don't know this, but I know in NCAA hockey, and especially on the East Coast, and when you get to the Division I schools, even on the out towards the Midwest that are playing hockey, these kids are playing college hockey and they've already been drafted. That's not the case with Canadian University Hockey. Is that correct?
No. There have been players who've come out of Canadian University Hockey and actually played in the NHL, but they're the exception to the rule. Generally, these guys, when they do come out after graduating Canadian University Hockey, they may play in the American Hockey League or the ECHL or go to Europe for a year or two. And, before they move on with their life, with their degree that they hopefully got in college.
All right. Something you're close to. Let's jump into the ECHL and when you think they're starting. Well,
the ECHL has decided what they're going to do is a split schedule, very unique, based on a lot of the cities they're in. And again, it's all COVID related, as we're well aware, but they're going to start on December 11th, and they're going to have 13 teams who are going to start a 72 game schedule. On January 15th, the remaining teams will join in and play a 62 game schedule. Now, with this unbalanced schedule, what they're going to end up doing is basing their standings not on points, but on winning percentage. So they look at that as a way to balance it out. Even though, like I said, you've got 13 teams who are going to play 10 more games. There are 2 teams who decided to drop out, and which is unfortunate. Atlanta and Norfolk are going black for this season. It was just too tough for them to get everything together, so their ECHL will be without those 2 this year.
Can those players go elsewhere?
Those players absolutely were deemed free agents, except the player contract with the NHL teams. Now, the NHL teams are going to have to look to place those players, if possible, in other teams that may already have an affiliation, or look at see if they're available to bring up to the American League, or even loan them to a European team if they're European players.
Got you. All right. AHL.
The American Hockey League is looking to launch February 5th. They're looking to do a full schedule. but obviously that's subject to change. And again, when you have some Canadian teams in the league, it is, again, potential of, like the Canadian teams may have to just play amongst themselves. Hopefully not. Hopefully this is people can start crossing the borders again by then, but that's a scenario they have to look at, and I'm sure are looking at.
Jumping up to the NHL, and you and I kind of discussed this a week or so ago, and during the bubble stage, when they started bringing in everybody to start the round robin and then the playoffs, they were looking at a December 1st start date. When the Stanley Cup was over and the draft came, Gary Bettman went on to state that, no, we're now looking more at January 1. What happened? Is it politics? Is it the almighty dollar with advertisers, fannies in the seats? What is controlling that start date?
I think it's a combination of things like you just touched on. I think politics are one. Obviously, the border closure is playing a huge factor. Two, you've got a lot of the players who played in the bubble, a lot of the European players went back home. So to come back again, especially to play for the Canadian teams, they have to isolate for 14 days under Canadian rules and laws right now. So I think they figured, you know what, January 1st, new year, new chance. And again, who knows, maybe they can, I know they're closely looking at the NFL, how they're doing it. More and more stadiums are slowly putting more and more butts in the seats, which is a good thing. And, the NHL is an attendance-driven league, just like pretty well everybody. And it's not just the butts in the seats, buying tickets, they're buying concessions. And it's also important, you look at all the ancillary people with all these teams who have been furloughed, they'd like to get back to work, and that happens when you have butts in the seats.
All right, now let's jump into a couple of teams today. Let's start with Dallas and making it all the way to the Stanley Cup final, going up against Tampa. Tampa was obviously our Stanley Cup champions and their second cup in team history. Dallas confirmed the hiring of a new coach who maybe isn't so new. What do you have there?
Well, Rick Bowness, who took over the reins during last season, which seems like years ago, from Jim Montgomery. He finished the season as the coach, went on to the Stanley Cup Finals with Dallas, as we all know. And it was during the finals that Jim Nill, the general manager, did say that Rick Bowness is his man as long as, Rick wanted the job, and Rick obviously wanted the job. They came to an agreement. Bones is he's a career guy. He's a career coach, career player. He's an old school guy, in a good way. Not a Mike Keenan type old school, but he's the players like Rick Bowness. He's a player's coach. He's seen both sides of coaching as an assistant coach and as a head coach,
and as a player.
And, well, you know what? His first experience of coaching came as a player coach. That happened back in the 82-83 American Hockey League season with Sherbrooke, when their head coach came down with a sickness, and Rick was asked to assume the duties as a player and a coach, which he did. The team did terrible, but you know what? That's a life experience, and I'm sure he'll never forget, or has helped shape what he's become. And he's learned through that situation how to deal with both sides of the equation, the management side and the player side. And a lot of times these days, coaches aren't so much an X and O guy as they are personnel management. And when you're talking a lot of players who have big money contracts, it is all managing players' personalities and getting the most out of them during the money they have.
Well, Scotty Bowman was one of the best at that, and he made sure his players were clear. He's here to coach you, and he's here to teach you the game. If you want to talk problems and issues with things, my assistant coaches handle that. I'm not your nanny.
Exactly. And you know what, Rick Bowness, he's come close to a cup, obviously, but he's never won, and I'm sure that's a motivating factor. Dallas is a team that's in good shape for the following few years. They got a great core of veterans, and they got some great young people who are already playing based on their last few draft choices, or draft years. They got some great kids who are waiting in the wings to jump in there. One who should make the jump this year for sure is Ty Dellandrea. He played with the Flint Firebirds in the OHL. I got to see him play a lot. He actually was with the team in the bubble. He was kind of, we know what the Black Aces are. They're the extra players in the playoffs who practice and are there, cheering on the other guys, but they're there in case somebody goes down and they need to jump into the lineup. And he got valuable experience by hanging out with and practicing with the team all year, or at least in the bubble situation. So he'll be ready to go next year. Big, strong centerman, great 200-foot player. So he will be a great addition in that lineup. Another one who could crack the lineup is Thomas Harley. He was the 2019 first-round draft choice, 18th overall. And he's a fantastic defenseman, a lot like Klinberg and Heiskanen, and he can move the puck and skate and jump into the play. So he's going to add some more excitement to that Dallas Blue Line. They're a team that's going to have to reckon with over the next few years.
Let's talk about some guys who are, let's say, shockingly, well, maybe not shockingly, surprisingly left on your NHL free agents list.
Well, the top guy for me is Mike Hoffman. I mean, this is a guy who can put the puck in the net, and everybody needs somebody who can put the puck in the net. Another one is a defenseman, Sami Vatanen. He went so far unsigned. He played with Carolina. He's been with Anaheim and also the New Jersey Devils. Solid defenseman, good puck mover, and can put points on the board. A couple more players who kind of surprised me that aren't signed yet is Anthony Duclair. Good scoring player. I mean, he last year
Arizona draft pick. Was he an Arizona draft pick?
Arizona, but the thing with Anthony Duclair is he's moved around a lot. He's been with the Coyotes, the Rangers, the Blackhawks, the Blue Jackets, and his last stop has been with Ottawa. And
5 teams. Okay, and I'm sorry, but 5 teams. So
yeah.
Is this an attitude problem? Is this a conflict with your teammates? Is this a coaching thing? Why would a kid who was drafted 6 years ago?
Yeah.
5 teams in 6 seasons. What's going on there?
Well, it's hard to say, and I don't want to label them at all. But it is, it's telling when you see somebody play that many teams. There's been, where do we look at? 5 teams that didn't like him, but obviously 5 teams that did like him to bring him in.
But you're not labeling him by stating the obvious. The teams that have had him and let him go. I mean, I've seen this kid play in Arizona. His rookie season, he was lights out.
Yeah.
Lights out.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't for the life of me figure out why he can't stay on a team because he is a talent with great speed.
Well, you know what? I think a lot of it too, and I think when you look at Hoffman, Vatanen, Duclair, and even Eric Hola from Florida, a lot of it has to do right now with the salary cap situation. That's still a big question mark. A lot of these guys, especially Vatanen and Hoffman, they're looking and who are looking for long-term, and I'm sure Duclair is too, looking for a long-term deal. So you've got to have the right team who needs that player, who's got the cap space and is going to be able to take on these guys for 3, 4, 5, and maybe in Duclair's case, even a 6-year contract. That may not be possible right away. So that could be a big reason why some of these guys are sitting. But yeah, Duclair, it is questionable why he's gone through so many teams so early in his career. Could it be attitude? Possibly. Could it be just conflicts with teammates? Possibly. Could be conflicts with coaches and management? Possibly. Hard to know. And I'm not going to speculate. Well, I am speculating, but it's probably one of those or multiples of those, but I can't say for sure. And now 2 other big names who are still on the free agent market, names that are common, are Ilya Kovalchuk and Zdeno Chara. Now, I think it's both of them are going to probably re-sign with the teams that they were with. I mean, Boston doesn't want to let Chara go. I think.
But isn't Chara 103?
You know what? He's in fantastic condition, and that's one of the things you have to look at these athletes today, especially the older ones. They understand their body's a temple, and it's that's how they make their money. So they keep themselves in fantastic condition.
Who's looking at Kovalchuk?
Kovalchuk is probably going to stay in Washington. He's very close with Ovechkin, and I'm sure he's happy there. But they got to come out with a deal that Kovalchuk's going to like. He's probably going to be asked to take less money to help them with the cap. But
yeah, it's got to be cap friendly for them.
Yeah, it's got to be cap friendly. And then if Kovalchuk agrees, it's got to be term. He's probably going to want at least 2 years. That's understandable. I'm sure they'll come to a deal. There's lots of time before the start of the January season. Hopefully, season in January, but that there is time for those deals to be made.
Before we get into a last subject, we are running short on time. I want to talk about, because we have a big subject I want to talk about here, but let's touch on the passing of Travis Roy.
Yeah, it was kind of a shock to hear. For those who are unaware, Travis Roy was a 20-year-old player with Boston University, and he sustained a tragic, career-ending, life-altering accident when he went headfirst into the boards 11 seconds into his first shift in his first game for Boston University when they played the University of North Dakota. Since that time, Travis used his time wisely and started the Travis Roy Foundation, helping people who became paraplegic. He just did a lot of good, championed that cause. And unfortunately, he passed away on the 29th of October at I think it was 45 years old, which is a shame. But his impact in the game probably wasn't what he planned, but nevertheless, his impact was tremendous, and he will be missed.
I remember seeing it. I remember reading the news story about it and seeing him in that corner, arms out, legs out, laying face down on the ice, thinking, dear God in heaven, what did I just witness?
Yep, absolutely. And the thing wasn't the good thing, I guess, is it wasn't that somebody hit him. He actually was very aggressive, missed a hit, and went himself into the boards, which was
it wasn't the result of a dirty hit.
No, exactly, which is a good thing because I'm sure the player he's trying to hit or any player who had hit him would have just been devastated themselves for the rest of their life. So
yes, yeah, because God knows how much it would have changed the game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it changed the game quite a bit as it was.
Right.
Realizing the danger of the boards and being hit into the boards, everything that came from it. So yeah,
it's an exciting sport, and one of the reasons for that is there is no out of bounds. While we are running out of time, we do need to touch on this. This is a very important subject. You and I have both talked about this for the last several days, and what's going on in Arizona, Mitch Miller, and you and I both are on the same page as far as agreeing that what's going on is so wrong. It's not funny. I'm not sure about you, Peter. I didn't have a brain in my head when I was 14 years old. And I don't know too many kids who do at 14 years old have a clue. But to do what he did, to send 32 letters to 32 teams acknowledging was wrong, he wasn't a 40-year-old man. He wasn't a head coach who treated his players like crap, a.k.a. Mike Babcock. He was not he was a little kid. He was 14 freaking years old. So before I go off on a rant, tell us what you know, what's going on here.
Let's start at the beginning, Ed, for those who are unaware of the whole situation. Mitchell Miller is a young man from Sylvania, Ohio, grew up playing hockey and went and played out in the United States Hockey League and ended up getting himself a scholarship at the University of North Dakota. Back when he was 14, Miller, along with another boy, got themselves in trouble. Well, it came to a head when they were 14. Apparently, it had gone on a bit before with the harassing of a young African-American boy who had been suffering some
special needs. He was special needs.
Special needs kid.
And I want to make it clear, I'm not condoning what he did. Not by any stretch of the imagination.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not condoning it at all. It's terrible. At 14, he was him and his cohort were brought in front of a judge, and they were both given community service to do. I don't know all the legal ramifications. Being in juvenile court, I don't even know if anything is released or if it's all sealed. But as you said, what Mitch Miller did, he's moved on with his life, and he got drafted by the Arizona Coyotes last month, 111th overall in the 4th round. And then as you said, he sent out those letters letting every NHL team know about his past so that, probably trying to avoid what has happened. But I guess the Arizona Republic paper out in Phoenix got hold of a kid he bullied and his parents or his mother and started creating a lot of noise in the Twitterverse. And the CEO and president of the Arizona Coyotes, at first said they're going to stand by their pick. They're going to trying to help everybody get better over racism and all that. They're going to work with him and make him part of the organization. And within 24 hours, they totally changed course and renounced him as a draft pick. And
that wasn't their choice because of what this kid did. Guess what the Arizona Republic, Twitterverse, Facebook, and all the other social media sites did to the University of North Dakota and the Arizona Coyotes. Here, I'll say it real quick. They bullied them.
Yeah, that's part of the cancel culture we live in right now, where the Twitterverse seems to be dominating what the decisions big corporations are making. And unfortunately, this young man is a victim of it. And again, not condoning he's done in the past, but, like every other person who's committed a wrong, he did what his court was instructed him to do with the community service. I think 14 to 18, I'm hoping he's grown a lot as a person. It's he's got to start over is basically what's going to happen for him.
I want to make sure that I am 100% clear to our audience about this. The things that he said in this article and the things that he did, I am not only not repeating, they're disgusting. They are 100% disgusting. But we all need to understand who said them, okay? Because I know that there are people out there who have kids that are 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, and us ourselves, you have them kids, we have had kids. They're not thinking in their right mind because they don't have one. It's not developed. You're going to destroy this kid's entire future because something he did when he was a kid, and it's wrong. It's 100% wrong. The University of North Dakota has told him he can finish his schooling on his scholarship, but he can no longer play hockey at the University of North Dakota. The Arizona Coyotes have cut him out. He is no longer a part of that organization. But I understand what you said at the beginning, and it's true. Someone as late as pick as him doesn't have a great shot at making the NHL, but who's to say he couldn't? Who's to say he couldn't have had a good career in the AHL and made it to the NHL? He does not have that shot because all 31 other teams, when they heard about this, took him off their draft board because he was on draft boards.
Well, you're right, Ed. Time will tell what's going to happen. I'm sure he may go back to his either stay in school for the year and maybe play club hockey out there or something just to keep on the ice, or he could go back to the United States Hockey League, play for his team there if they'll take him back. It's hard to say what he's going to do.
What do you see him? I mean, obviously, right now, today, there's not a team in the NHL that's going to offer him a contract, regardless, just because of the press and the media that's doing all this. Yeah. So, do you see him going to the USHL, the ECHL? Will no one talk to him as a pro? Maybe can he go to Europe?
Europe is definitely a possibility in his future, but I'm sure as any young 18-year-old, especially who is good enough and got drafted in the NHL, and we're only talking a couple hundred players a year who get drafted into the league, whether they play or not, that still puts you in elite status. But what this young man really needs right now is a Glenn Sather to come out of the woods. And for those who are old enough to remember,
yeah.
Glenn Sather was the savior of Craig McTavish. For those who don't know the story from the 80s, Craig McTavish played for the Boston Bruins. He made a huge mistake himself, and this was as an adult and playing in the NHL, when he got behind the wheel after drinking and committed vehicular homicide. Craig spent a year in prison, and afterwards, Harry Sinden realized that there was no chance he could come back play for the Bruins, but his good friend up in Edmonton, Glenn Sather, said, yeah, he's a good enough player. Let's bring him into Edmonton. And for those who know, McTavish went on to help the Oilers with 3 Stanley Cups. And
eventually became their head coach.
And he's become a head coach, and he's carved out a heck of a career. So, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and hopefully Mitchell will get an opportunity, go to a camp, and show what he can do on the ice.
I want to stay on this story every week we're on, even if it's just touch base to see where he is and what he is doing, to kind of follow along with him, even if it's for a brief moment, because we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff in all the leagues, all of the teams, the NHL teams, their affiliates from the AHLs, ECHL, and what's going on in the other leagues, whether it's collegiate, whether it's the USHL, the National Team Development Program, the OHL, Quebec Major Junior, World Junior Tournaments. We didn't get a chance to talk on that today. I want to do that next week before we dive into our next team. Fill us in on what you're going to bring to that, because I know you have eyes on that league a lot. Yeah,
the World Juniors are going to be really interesting this year. Like I said, we'll go into more detail, but they're going to adapt the NHL's bubble idea and bring every country's team into Edmonton, and they're going to play the tournament there. It's going to start Christmas Day and run for, I think it's 15 days, and it's going to be one heck of a tournament because there's going to be a lot of fantastic players playing in that tournament from all of the 10 countries are involved.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. My name is Ed Combs. I am here in South Florida. My co-host, Peter South, up in Windsor, Ontario. We are PuckHeads Insiders. You listen to Season 1, Episode 1. Thank you very much, and we look forward to talking to you next week. Thank you so much.
You too, Ed. Thank you very much, and appreciate all our listeners.